Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 episode number 86 based on novel. So let's start. After hearing Elder Shen's words, everyone went silent. If sects were allowed to participate in the tournament, they might no longer be odds-on to be the champions anymore. Just like Elder Shen had said, there would be a lot of trouble if the body sect also competed in the tournament, not to mention the rest of the sects on the continent. The body sect wasn't the only capable sect. In Hua Yuhao's heart, the Clear Sky sect was not inferior to the body sect. Bei Bei said, Elder Shen, it'll be much more difficult for us in this tournament. You called for us because you want us to up our training intensity over the next few months. Elder Shen waved his hand and replied, no matter how the system changes, I'm confident in all of you. In the last tournament, the 7 of you brought back the title of champions even under such unfortunate circumstances. 5 years on, the 7 of you are even better than before. So what if the other sects compete? Although this spells more trouble, I'm sure you'll emerge as champions. However, have the 7 of you ever considered the fact that a change in the system will be beneficial for you even if it's a bad thing for the academy? The 7 of you belong to the same sect. After hearing his words, everyone was stunned. As members of Shrek's 7 monsters, they naturally treated themselves as part of Shrek Academy. They were the main competing members of the academy. However, Elder Shen's words made it sound a little different. Shu Sancha was stunned as he asked, Elder Shen, are you saying that you are allowing us to compete in the tournament as part of the Tang sect? Elder Shen smiled and replied, I'm not approving anything. It depends on whether the 7 of you are willing. Their expressions changed as they looked at one another. Elder Shen said, if the 7 of you compete as part of the Tang sect, the academy will send another team to compete. All of you will still be recognized as Shrek's 7 monsters. This means that everyone will still know that you are from Shrek Academy even though you are representing the Tang sect. In this way, it's equivalent to our academy sending 2 teams out. This is double insurance for the academy. Bei Bei hesitated, however, if we win, the legacy of Shrek Academy's glory in the tournament will. Elder Shen replied, when Elder Mu passed away, he once told me that glory can't be your restraint. What's a little glory compared to the better development of the academy and your futures? Don't tell me that Shrek Academy will stop being the top academy on the continent just because we are not champions. As he spoke till here, there was a look of pride in his eyes. Bei Bei pondered for a moment before saying, if we represent the Tang sect, we'll still face some problems. For example, we don't have any substitutes. In addition, can the academy send a suitable team in our place? Elder Shen replied, you look down on the academy too much. I was still hesitating over this matter. However, didn't Yuhao tell all of you that there's a new talent in the academy? Hua Yuhao said immediately, Wang Chua? Elder Shen nodded and said, that's right. If the 7 of you represent the Tang sect, Wang Chua will assume the role of team leader to represent Shrek Academy. There are still other outstanding students below the age of 20 in our academy. Although they aren't as good as the 7 of you, they aren't that much inferior. I'll give you a few days to think about it. Let's make it 3 days. Within 3 days, you must give me a definite answer, yes. Bei Bei acknowledged his words. From the way he clenched his fist, it was evident that he wasn't calm. He was even slightly agitated. After bidding Elder Shen goodbye, everyone gathered at Bei Bei and Shu Sanchi's dormitory. Shu Sancha said, guys, what should we do? Should we represent Shrek or the Tang sect? He Kaitu said, I'm fine with both. To me, there's not much difference. Elder Shen was right. No matter who we represent, everyone will know that we're from Shrek. If we represent the Tang sect, it's equivalent to Shrek sending 2 teams for the tournament. Jiang Nannan furrowed her brow and said, I'm only worried. If we represent the Tang sect, it'll be very difficult for Shrek Academy to become champions. Whether they lose to us or others, it'll represent the end of Shrek's glory in the tournament. We fought so hard to preserve this glory during the last tournament. If we lose it just like that, I'll be very indignant. While Elder Shen appeared to be very calm about the matter, the influence of this glory will impact Shrek greatly. Xiao Xiao didn't mutter a word. She rarely opened her mouth during discussions. Bei Bei turned his attention towards Hua Yuhao and Wang Dong. What about the 2 of you? Hua Yuhao pondered for a moment before replying, I feel that we should represent the Tang sect. In terms of selfish motives, I want to do this for teacher Xiao Ya and do my best to help the Tang sect prosper. Disregarding selfish considerations, we can't rely on the academy forever. We need to make a name for ourselves too. As for the academy's glory, I don't think there'll be any conflict even if we represent the Tang sect. No conflict? Bei Bei was puzzled as he looked at him. Hua Yuhao whispered something, and everyone's gazes turned perplexed. Isn't this a little shameless? Will the committee allow this? Wang Donga couldn't help but say. She looked at Hua Yuhao with a weird look on her face. Hua Yuhao asked confusedly, how is it shameless? We're only showcasing our identities. No matter how the system changes, There shouldn't be any special restrictions in this aspect. Bei Bei and Shu Sancha looked at each other. Bei Bei was relieved, while Shu Sancha clapped his hands and said, "Sixth junior, you're impressive. I didn't expect you to inherit eldest senior's slyness." Impressive. Bei Bei snapped and kicked, "Get lost." "How am I sly?" Shu Sancha avoided his kick and said, "How dare you kick me? Be careful, or I won't give my best during the tournament." Bei Bei snorted and replied, "Then I'll send Nan Nan up to deal with the most troublesome opponent around." Shu Sancha opened his eyes wide and was filled with condemnation. Bei Bei acted like he didn't see anything and said, "I think that little junior's suggestion is very good. Since this is the case, we've solved our greatest problem. I also agree that we should represent the Tang sect to compete." Undoubtedly, Bei Bei, Shu Sancha and Hu Yuhao were the core of this team. Shu Sancha didn't say anything, but he appeared to be fine with the suggestion. Hu Yuhao and Bei Bei had already agreed, and thus there was technically a conclusion already. Bei Bei took in a deep breath and said seriously, "Then let's do our best for the Tang sect's glory in this tournament." As he spoke, he reached out with his right hand. Everyone reached out their right hands and they stacked their hands together. A strong camaraderie surrounded the dormitory hall they were in. "Yuhao, let's go. Let's tell Elder Shen what we think. The academy can also prepare." Bei Bei told Hu Yuhao, and they prepared to leave the dormitory. After leaving, Bei Bei hugged Hu Yuhao's shoulder. "Thank you." He knew that everyone would have hesitated without Hu Yuhao's support, since they were clearly aware that they were all members of Shrek's 7 monsters. Among the 7 of them, Bei Bei was undoubtedly the most eager to represent the Tang sect. It was all for the Tang Ya. Tang Ya had been missing for close to 5 years, and there had been no news of her yet. What was the probability that she was still alive? Although Bei Bei had never mentioned it over the past 5 years, he knew the internal pressure that he felt. He just wanted to do something for the Tang Ya now, and he also prayed every day in the hopes that she was still alive. Undoubtedly, the modified Continental Soul Master Youth Tournament was a good way to find Tang Ya. If the Tang sect eventually emerged as champions, Tang Ya would learn of the good news, and perhaps she would return. Even if they couldn't find her, Bei Bei's promise to her could still be fulfilled. Hu Yuhao shook his head slightly and said, "Eldest senior, I would have died in the Great Stardow Forest if not for you and teacher Xiao Ya. The two of you are my benefactors. I was also given the chance to enter Shrek Academy because of the Tang sect. Although I'm a Shrek Academy student, I'm also a part of the Tang sect. Without affecting the Academy's glory, I'm willing to fight for the Tang sect's glory and teacher Xiao Ya. When we emerge as champions, she'll know about it and return." Bei Bei said with confidence, "Yes. Xiao Ya will be back. I will wait for her for my entire life." After receiving their report, Elder Shen looked as if he knew this was going to happen. He only instructed them to make their preparations. When the change to the system was confirmed, he would inform them about the registration method again. After exiting the Sea God's Pavilion, Bei Bei seemed to recall something. He asked Hu Yuhao, "Oh yes, a few people were here to find you yesterday. They came to the academy directly. Since you weren't around, the academy wasn't able to host them. They came directly to me. I asked them to proceed to the Tang sect first. If you are not in a rush, you can go and find them first. They seem to come from the Sun Moon Empire. Nana knows them too." After hearing Bei Bei's words, Hu Yuhao was elated. It was good news. He immediately guessed who was here to find him. "Eldest senior, was it a soul engineer named Shen Ziwen who was here to find me?" Hu Yuhao asked immediately. Bei Bei thought for a moment before replying, "I think there was such a person. I was busy with other things then, and didn't bother to converse with them properly." Hu Yuhao was delighted. "It's good if it's teacher Shen. Eldest senior, he's a class 8 soul engineer. He's also a chief researcher in the illustrious Virtue Hall. If he's willing to join the Tang sect, our reputation in soul tools will soon grow in the continent. Oh, what's going on?" Bei Bei was interested after hearing his words. Hu Yuhao recounted his bet with Shen Ziwen, and how he had attracted him to join the Tang sect. After hearing his explanation, Bei Bei finally understood, and was also surprised. Undoubtedly, it was very difficult to find someone of Shen Ziwen's caliber. Hu Yuhao was greatly strengthening the sect by poaching someone as capable as him. "Alright, that's great. No, I must go with you." "Oh, wait, the 7 of us should go together. Teacher Shen is very important. We need to show our respect for him," Bei Bei said decisively. Hu Yuhao said, "Eldest senior, did you mention that there were a few of them? Besides teacher Shen, who else is here?" Bei Bei laughed. "Why are you asking me? If you don't know, why would I know? Don't think about it. You'll know when we see them, alright?" Hu Yuhao acknowledged his words, and the two returned to the dormitory to brief the rest before proceeding to the Tang sect. They had great freedom in the academy. They only needed to consult their teachers when they had any queries. There weren't any rules restricting their freedom. The 7 of them rushed over to the Tang sect. After entering the courtyard, Hua Yuhao saw two familiar figures. He was stunned as he saw them, and mumbled, "The two of you really can't be shaken off." Bei Bei stared at him and asked, "Yuhao, what do you mean?" Hua Yuhao laughed bitterly. "I have to say this about these two. Eldest senior, you don't know how much they pestered me. Why are they here with teacher Xian to find me?" The two individuals that Hua Yuhao mentioned were sparring as Hua Yuhao and Bei Bei entered the courtyard, but they stopped when the two of them entered. As they saw Hua Yuhao's annoyed look, they revealed smiles on their face. These two were Ji Juechen and Jing Xian, Hua Yuhao's old foes when he was at the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. Hua Yuhao certainly didn't expect the two of them to be here in Shrek City. Jing Xian placed her hands on her waist and taunted him. "Why Hua Yuhao, why don't you welcome us? You're acting tough just because we're in your territory? If you're unconvinced, why don't you fight us?" Seeing these two pests, Hua Yuhao placed his hands on his waist and answered, "Okay, are the two of you challenging the seven of us, or are we whacking the two of you?" Jing Xian was joking, but Ji Juechen took it for real. He had found another pitch-black iron sword. He pointed it forward, and his aura soared. He wasn't called a sword fanatic for nothing. As they felt the sharp and vicious sword intent, the rest of the seven were stunned. What was going on? Were they enemies? Stop fooling around. Let's clear things up before sparring. Hua Yuhao looked helpless as he approached them. After that, he turned to the rest behind him and said, "Let me introduce you guys. These two guys are Jing Xian and Ji Juechen. They are my good pals from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy." Jing Xian grinned when she heard Hua Yuhao's introduction. When he said good pals, he sounded extremely furious. "They are my seniors and juniors in the Tang sect. Surely the two of you didn't come all the way from the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy to Shrek City to fight me, right?" Hua Yuhao didn't know what the two of them were up to. Ji Juechen shook his head immediately. Hua Yuhao heaved a sigh of relief. That's right, they couldn't possibly travel thousands of kilometers to fight him. However, Jing Xian followed with, "We came here to fight many rounds with you." "What?" Hua Yuhao almost choked on his saliva. "Many rounds? Don't you need to study?" Ji Juechen replied, "We've quit the academy." Jing Xian said seriously, "When you were about to leave, we discussed and agreed that we learned more from sparring with you than anything we've learned from the academy. We are both more like soul masters. That's why we believe this place might be more suitable for us, and why we're here. We don't really have anything over there that we'll miss anyway. You can just give us a roof over our heads and fight us every day. You can also choose not to fight us, but we'll stick to you wherever you go." Hua Yuhao was stunned as he stared at them. It was quite miraculous that they could actually pester him to such a standard. Ji Juechen waved his sword and said, "Since we've cleared things up, can we fight now?" The rest of Shrek's 7 monsters, including Wang Donga, had no intention of helping Hua Yuhao. They all moved to one side to watch the show that was about to start. Wang Donga whispered to the rest in a bid to explain Ji Juechen and Jing Xian's background. Just as everyone was ready to watch the sparring, voices sounded out from the gate. "Hua Yuhao, come out." This voice was very familiar. Hua Yuhao was stunned for another moment. He signaled to Ji Juechen before walking out. It was Wang Chua, who was standing outside. Hua Yuhao was at a loss for words as he asked her, "Chua, why are you here?" She replied, "Why can't I come? Are there terrifying beasts in the Tang sect? I went to the inner courtyard to find you, but I heard you were out. I guessed that you returned to the Tang sect, so I came to find you. Dean Cai told me that the 3 soul bones can be shared between the two of us. What do you plan to do with them?" Hua Yuhao said, "I have something to deal with over here. Come in first. We'll talk about the soul bones later. Since you want them, I can give them all to you." As he spoke, he ushered Wang Chua inside. Jing Xian rubbed her eyes as she saw Wang Chua entering. After that, she turned to the other side and asked, "Twins?" Wang Chua replied, "No." Wang Donga also answered, "We are not twins." They were both so ravishing, and were even lookalikes. Even Ji Juechen couldn't help but take more glances at the two of them. "Hua Yuhao, come." Ji Juechen lifted his sword again. After he had stopped sparring, he had felt his improvement stalling. This also made him more certain that giving up his education at the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy to find Hua Yuhao was the correct decision. Hua Yuhao snapped, "Come, what come? Don't you see that I have guests? Also, where's Teacher Xian?" Ji Juechen's eyes were already filled with the light of competition, and couldn't be bothered. "Let's fight first." As he spoke, he lifted his blade, and a vicious sword intent was released. At this point, his soul power seemed different from before. It surfaced as a dim silver, and even his eyes shone with silver light. It was evident that his powers had improved. Ji Juechen said, "Yuhao, I developed a deeper understanding of sword intent, which I have named Dragonslayer. Come on." "Dragonslayer?" Hua Yuhao's expression turned weird, and he immediately twisted his head to look at Wang Chua. He muttered, "I'm not someone who picks on others, but someone has named his ability Dragon Slayer. Chua, can you accept that? Wang Chua coordinated with him and snorted, of course not. Let me fight him instead. As she spoke, she took a step forward. She let out a deep roar, and the entirety of Tang's sect seemed to shake momentarily. Following this, a strong competitive will rose from her. She didn't have any sword or fist intent, but only possessed an unprecedented and domineering fighting will. Her deep dragon roar shook the air, and intense golden light started to surround her entire body in layers. The rest of Shrek's 7 monsters widened their eyes as they looked at her. This works. Yu Hao still dares to say that he's not a picky person? What is considered picky then? He passed on his hatred too easily. Ji Juechen was also stunned when his opponent suddenly changed. However, he recovered very quickly. To him, it didn't matter who his opponent was. The key was that his opponent was able to give him pressure. He couldn't find someone like that in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. Otherwise, why would he travel all the way here? It was easy to tell whether one was capable after they made their first move. Chua only stepped forward, but she immediately repressed Ji Juechen's aura. This simple action already left him very impressed. Ji Juechen squinted his eyes, but the sword intent that he had unleashed suddenly turned gentle. While Hua Yuhao had passed on the trouble to Wang Chua, he didn't cease observing Ji Juechen. As his sword intent changed, his expression also changed slightly. Is he pulling off a reversal? No, it isn't at that standard yet. How does he hide it? A hidden sword intent is the most terrifying weapon. I didn't expect his improvement to be so great. He has already understood sword intent to such a standard. It seemed like it wouldn't be easy for him to deal with Ji Juechen. After all, he was focused only on swords, while Hua Yuhao had to learn many things. Perhaps he could beat him in overall abilities, but it would become increasingly difficult for him to tackle Ji Juechen's sword intent with just his own fist. At this point, Wang Chua moved. She didn't care about his sword intent or whatever tricks he had up his sleeve. In her eyes, her opponents would only meet with one result: destruction. Wang Chua burst towards Ji Juechen like a golden shooting star. Her right fist also turned completely golden, and she attacked without using any flowery skills. Ji Juechen held his sword with both his hands. He made half a step with his left leg and thrust forward. As this sword pierced out, the silver light around him was sucked into the sword, eventually gathering at the tip. The moment it stabbed out, the surrounding air seemed to overlap. As a boom sounded, her fist and his sword collided, and an explosion rang out. No one had expected Wang Chua's fist to change at the last moment. Yes, it changed. Her fist turned into a palm. She tore through space just like that, and avoided Ji Juechen's sword. Her right palm struck the blade instead. Her body turned as the sword aimed for her vitals. The vicious sword intent that shot out struck the wall and caused a huge explosion, blowing apart a hole at least 3 meters wide. Ji Juechen's sword also started to crack at this point. Wang Chua crushed his sword with her palm. As she made a turn, her left fist punched straight towards Ji Juechen. Ji Juechen subconsciously lifted his hands to block. Another boom sounded, and Ji Juechen flew back like a broken sack, slamming into the wall. 2 strikes. From the start to the end, Wang Chua only unleashed 2 strikes. The fight ended just like that. As she stood straight, a gust of violent wind seemed to blow beside her. Her sleeves and hair were blown backward, and the golden light around her body was withdrawn. She was extremely strong. Everyone was stunned as they watched the fight. Jing Xian was the most shocked. She understood Ji Juechen's abilities the best. After he gained a deeper understanding of sword intent, his own sword intent seemed to have undergone a huge transformation. However, he lost so pathetically to Wang Chua, even more pathetically than the first time he had fought Hua Yuhao. She also only had 6 soul rings, just like him. Was this Shrek Academy's ability? Only Hua Yuhao could tell that Wang Chua didn't win easily, even though she appeared to be very relaxed. She seemed to have transcended space and avoided Ji Juechen's sword intent. Her sleeves and hair were not blown back because she was trying to act cool. She was trying to neutralize the shockwave from Ji Juechen's sword intent. She stood there for 5 seconds before the wind around her calmed down and disappeared. She was slightly stunned as she looked at Ji Juechen, who had formed a human-shaped hole in the wall. She nodded at him and said, "Bring a better sword next time." Ji Juechen was covered in dust now, and even looked slightly pathetic. However, his eyes were especially bright. He looked back at Chua and nodded. Wang Chua turned around to look at Hua Yuhao and said, "Find me after you return to the inner courtyard." After she finished speaking, she didn't bother with the others and left just like that, as if she had just done something insignificant. Jing Xian's facial muscles were cramping slightly as she muttered, This is too much. Hua Yuhao, where did you find that lady?" Hua Yuhao placed his hands behind his back and said carefreely, "Those from the Tang sect are all of this standard. Don't bother finding me in the future. Have you seen? These are my seniors." What are your plans? Ji Juechen didn't bother with the dust on his body, and nodded at Hua Yuhao. He said, staying. Jing Xian also said, we're definitely going to stay here. Give us a place to stay and eat. That'll be enough. Hua Yuhao furrowed his brow and said, you can't stay. The Tang sect doesn't accept outsiders. You will only be fed and given a place to stay if you join us. Bei Bei coughed twice and hurriedly walked over. He said, since the two of you have come from afar, you can stay as long as you want. Of course, our doors will always be open to you. We are not as pathetic as Little Junior described us. Our sect has our own martial soul department. I believe both of you know about the glory of the Tang sect from thousands of years ago. We're rebuilding the Tang sect because we want to regain that glory again. Hua Yuhao immediately added on, eldest senior, we can't just accept anyone. Their abilities are a bit weak. Furthermore, we won't accept outsiders. Once they learn from our sect, they can't leave easily. Otherwise, we'll have to get back what they've learned. Jing Xian glared and asked, Hua Yuhao, who's weak? Hua Yuhao answered, I'm talking about you. Can you beat me? I'm ranked 6th in the Tang sect, but you can't even best me. Aren't you weak? You? As the two of them bickered, Ji Juechen's eyes flashed for a moment before he nodded and said, we're staying. We won't go. Jing Xian snorted and said, we'll stay. When we learn the Tang sect secret techniques, we'll deal with you again. Hua Yuhao laughed bitterly. You're welcome anytime. Alright, we are all Tang sect brothers and sisters now. Let me introduce you. He introduced all his seniors to them. Ji Juechen was still a little stunned, and only nodded at everyone. However, Jing Xian made up for what he was lacking, greeting everyone properly. Bei Bei secretly gave Hua Yuhao a thumbs up. They could obviously tell that the two of them had rather strong abilities. While Wang Chua won beautifully, did Ji Juechen actually lose so heavily? Change his sword, and it would be difficult to tell. Hua Yuhao said, Brother Ji, have you been unable to find a suitable sword? Ji Juechen nodded. Hua Yuhao replied, try this. As he spoke, he took out a sword from his storage-type soul tool and offered it to Ji Juechen. There was a reason why Ji Juechen was called a sword fanatic. When he saw swords, he had the same reaction as Shu Sancha when he saw beauties. His eyes immediately brightened, and he was filled with passion. He received the sword without any hesitation. Once the sword entered his hand, he immediately said, it's a good sword, thank you. This sword's blade surfaces were two different colors, one was black, and the other was white. Wasn't this the judgment sword that had sparked the evil fire within Ma Xiaodao during the last Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament? Elder Mu had eventually given this judgment sword to Hua Yuhao. But Hua Yuhao didn't use swords, and thus he took this opportunity to give it to Ji Juechen. Ji Juechen poured his soul power into the sword as he held it. A stunned look arose on his face. The combination of light and darkness was something he had never experienced before, but it was present in this sword. It was a truly strong sword. Hua Yuhao said, this sword is a close combat soul tool. It's also the strongest close combat soul tool that I've ever seen. It's called the Judgment Sword. It caused huge problems for us during the last tournament. I'm giving it to you now because I hope that you can unleash its full power. It doesn't have many requirements of its user, and possesses great strength. I can feel that even the person who molded this sword was unable to unleash its full power. Just to reclaim this sword, Jing Hongchen came to Shrek Academy personally. From this, I'm sure you can tell how great it is. Alright, thanks. Ji Juechen thanked him for the second time, which showed how much he liked this sword. A room for me? Hua Yuhao replied, okay. However, the two of you will need to shoulder some responsibility since you've joined Tang sect. Oh? Ji Juechen was startled for a moment. Hua Yuhao wore a serious expression on his face as he said, at least you'll need to be responsible for your own actions. Fix the wall. He was right. Two of the walls had been damaged. The courtyard of the Tang sect was now exposed. Ji Juechen's expression stiffened, and he looked at Jing Xian as if he were begging for help. Jing Xian was also in a daze. She snapped, why are you looking at me? You're a big man. You want me to fix the wall for you? Do you still have face? Ji Juechen's expression turned bitter, and he asked Hua Yuhao, where are the bricks? Hua Yuhao's lips twitched, and he tried his best not to laugh, I'll find some for you. Jiang Nannan commented as she saw what happened, Yuhao, don't bully an honest person. I'll arrange your living quarters. Regarding the wall, let the few of them think about it, thanks. Ji Juechen felt as if he had met his benefactor. Shu Sancha was a little worried as he saw Ji Juechen's handsome looks and felt his naturally woody aura. He rushed to say, I'll go too, I'll go too. Hua Yuhao was speechless as he said, none of you saw how they tortured me in the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy. I'm just exacting a little revenge on them. Shu Sancha and Jiang Nannan brought Jing Xian and Ji Juechen away to their living quarters. Bei Bei watched as they left and didn't hide his delight anymore. Little Junior, It seems like the Tang sect is becoming more and more prosperous. Those two aren't ordinary. Hua Yuhao chortled. They're both fanatics. All of you are in for some trouble in the future. However, they're also very direct people. They'll be happy as long as you spar with them. I never expected Juechen's sword intent to reach such a standard. He's indeed very focused. Eldest senior, let's find Teacher Xian quickly. He'll be pivotal in the future development of soul tools in the Tang sect. When they found Shen Ziwen, he was beside the soul tool forge at the back of the Tang sect. In addition, he didn't look like a Class 8 soul engineer. He was dressed very simply, and there were even oil stains on his clothes. As he squatted outside the forge and watched the workers forging the soul tools, his gaze never even moved slightly. Teacher Xian, Hua Yuhao called out. Shen Ziwen continued to squat as he turned around to look. He waved his hand before turning his attention back to the soul tools. Hua Yuhao quickly walked towards him before squatting down as he reached him. Teacher Xian, don't peek. There are secrets. Shen Ziwen snapped, stop spouting nonsense. What procedures are needed to join the sect? Tell me quick. Did you know that waiting for you here the past few days was equivalent to wasting my life? Bei Bei was in a daze. This guy is even more direct than the previous two. Evidently, his passion was for soul tools. For people like Shen Ziwen and Ji Juechen, who could be so devoted to a single thing, they were either lunatics or geniuses among geniuses. Hua Yuhao naturally knew that Shen Ziwen wanted to join the Tang sect since he had volunteered to come on his own. He shot a look at Bei Bei immediately. Bei Bei still didn't understand, and quickly walked up to him before squatting down beside Shen Ziwen. He said, "Hello Teacher Xian, I am currently the eldest senior of the Tang sect. Welcome to the Tang sect. Let's do it this way, you'll be our deputy sect master from now on. You'll be in charge of soul tools." Shen Ziwen wasn't bothered about such things. Otherwise, why would he leave the illustrious Virtue Hall? Oh, alright. Yuhao, give it to me. As he spoke, he gestured to Hua Yuhao. Hua Yuhao naturally knew what he wanted. Do you want the earliest set of information regarding the Tang sect's secret weapons, or do you want them with my research? Shen Ziwen replied, the earliest set please. If I see your research, my train of thought might be disrupted. Oh, leave that metallic man with me, too. Can I enter now? Although he was a soul tool fanatic, he was more in touch with the world compared to Ji Juechen. Otherwise, he would have rushed into the forge already. Hua Yuhao said, guys, bring one complete Zhuge Divine crossbow cannon for Teacher Xian to study. Eldest senior, give one set of the hidden weapon manuals to Teacher Xian. Alright. Bei Bei retrieved a set of hidden weapon manuals for Shen Ziwen. Teacher Xian, let us arrange your living quarters. Shen Ziwen's gaze was fixated on the Zhuge Divine crossbow cannon that came out from the forge. His eyes brightened. No rush, no rush. Go and get busy. You don't have to bother with me. Yuhao, don't leave today. I'll find you tonight for a talk, alright? Hua Yuhao tugged Bei Bei and gestured to the rest of them before leaving. He understood Shen Ziwen. He lost his sense of time once he entered his research state. When they returned to the meeting hall, Jiang Nannan and Shu Sanxia had also returned. Their expressions were very weird. After Ji Juechen received the judgment sword, he took it and went into retreat. Jing Xian also went to rest. Bei Bei said, youngest junior, it's not really a good idea to leave Teacher Xian there on his own, right? Hua Yuhao shook and said, don't worry, eldest senior. He came to the Tang sect for proper reasons. Just let him do what he wants. Xiao Xiao was a little worried. Yuhao, surely he's not here to steal confidential information before leaving, right? Hua Yuhao shook his head and answered, he's not that kind of person. He's only interested in soul tools. At least before he fully completes his research into soul tools, he won't do anything. The Tang sect is different from the illustrious Virtue Hall. The illustrious Virtue Hall is already the best place to create soul tools on the continent. Everything there is advanced. However, we've only just gained traction here, although we have developed things in a new direction. To Elder Xian, this is the place that will bring him a greater sense of achievement. That's why he chose to come over. There are many possibilities to combine the Tang sect's hidden weapons and soul tools. It's practically impossible to calculate all of them. Under such a circumstance, he won't leave anytime soon. I can also vouch for his character. Bei Bei nodded and said, if you doubt someone, don't use him. If you use him, don't doubt him. Teacher Xian is already the deputy sect master of the Tang sect. Everyone, please make sure not to spout such words in the future. Yuhao, what do you think we should do to coordinate with him? Yuhao thought for a moment and said, give him the rare materials that I brought back. Eldest senior, does our sect have money? Bei Bei smiled and replied, we have some money. The academy is very supportive of us, and paid us beforehand when they ordered the Zhuge Divine crossbow cannon. They also offered a good price. Hua Yuhao said without any hesitation, then let's think of a way to exchange our money for rare metals. In this way, I'll ask Teacher Shen whether he has any special needs before I make a list of them. After that, we can think of ways to obtain what he needs, alright? Wang Dong laughed. Why do I feel that your friends made a bad choice in befriending you? You're obviously squeezing whatever value you can from them. Hua Yuhao wore a maligned look on his face. What? I'm just catering to their interests. He Kai-tu stood up and said, I'll go to Teacher Shen's side to take a look. I only listened to how Yuhao complimented his capabilities, but didn't have a chance to consult him. Now that we're on the same side, I won't stand on ceremony anymore. After he finished speaking, he eagerly turned around and left. Although Fan Yu and Shen Ziwen were both Class 8 Soul engineers, there were still big gaps in terms of their experience and thinking. He Kai-tu was quite pleased to see Shen Ziwen here. Furthermore, he was also a Class 7 Soul engineer himself, and was very familiar with the Tang sect. With him around, Shen Ziwen's research would also be expedited. Hua Yuhao said, Eldest senior, let's stay in the Tang sect tonight and return tomorrow. Oh wait, I can't. I still have to make a return trip. I also have a present for the Tang sect. Wang Dong stood up and said, I'll go with you. Bei Bei smiled even wider as he observed his juniors. As he looked at the sky outside, he muttered to himself, Xiao Ya, if you're still around, you'd be very delighted to see the improvements the Tang sect has made, eh? Are you feeling emotional again? Don't be like a girl, Shu Sancha taunted him. What's wrong with girls? Jiang Nannan and Xiao Xiao were both displeased as they stared at Shu Sancha. Shu Sancha coughed. Girls are great. Girls are gentle, passionate, and sentimental. However, guys are different. Jiang Nannan stood up and said, I'll go find a gentle and passionate guy. Don't. My wife, I was wrong. Shu Sancha was deservedly the owner of the shield of the Xuanwu turtle. He greatly encapsulated the true meaning of a turtle, adaptable. Who's your wife? Watch your mouth. After Jiang Nannan had established her relationship with Shu Sancha, she stated that their status would develop according to the situation. Shu Sancha had to be tested frequently. He was tormented and happy at the same time. In fact, he was even a bit of a masochist. Bei Bei also stood up and added, Sancha, let's go and work out. I've not whacked you in ages. I'm itching to do so. Shu Sancha stopped cajoling Jiang Nannan and started to laugh coldly. It's still too early to tell who will lose. Nannan, let's whack him together. Bei Bei wouldn't allow himself to be disadvantaged like that and immediately said, 2 versus 2, who's scared of who? Xiao Xiao, pair up with me, yes. Xiao Xiao was very obedient, and immediately agreed. 2 hours later, Hua Yuhao and Wang Dong saw how pathetic 2 of them were when they brought the dark golden terraclaw bear cubs back. Jiang Nannan and Xiao Xiao were fine, but Shu Sancha and Bei Bei looked pitiful. A bruise had even swelled up on Bei Bei's forehead, and he was attending to it. Shu Sancha was in an even worse state, as half of his face was swollen. Shu Sancha was furious as he claimed, Bei Bei, are you still human? We agreed not to hit one another's faces, but you still did so. It was definitely deliberate. Bei Bei snapped, deliberate? Didn't you do the same? Look at my head. Look how bad you hit it. The bruise is so big. You are completely inhumane. How can I show myself to others anymore? Stop quarreling. Stop quarreling. Seniors, we are back. Hua Yuhao saw the 2 of them the moment he entered. He almost burst out in laughter, and rushed over to mediate. Oh, Yuhao. You've brought the 2 cubs back. Shu Sancha saw the 2 cubs immediately. His eyes brightened as he said, dog meat hot pot, right? Our diet will change tonight. Yuhao's cooking is unrivaled. I'll not pick on you anymore. Yuhao, let me give you a hand. Tell me how you want to kill them, cut their bellies or throats. As he spoke, Shu Sancha had already wandered over. He was even salivating. Hua Yuhao said helplessly, 3rd senior, they can't be eaten. They are treasures given to the Tang sect. Perhaps they felt that Shu Sancha was going to harm them, but the 2 cubs started to roar furiously at him. Shu Sancha was startled as he exclaimed, these 2 are really like bears, even though they aren't mature yet. Hua Yuhao replied, what do you mean they are like bears? They are bears, dark golden terraclaw bears. They are the biggest reward from our trip to the Great Stardo Forest. Everyone had already gathered at this point. Xiao Xiao and Jiang Nannan couldn't help but touch them as they saw how cute they were. However, these 2 cubs were very aggressive even though they were still young. They were ready to bite back at whoever got close to them. Shu Sancha was the most domineering. He used each of his hands to grab the thick skin at the cubs' necks and pick them up. They're pretty strong. I've not eaten the meat of dark golden terraclaw bears before. I'll make the both of you into hot pot if you continue to throw tantrums. Perhaps they understood his threat. As he picked them up, they immediately toned down and whimpered non-stop piak. Jiang Nannan slapped Shu Sanchi's back. You've hurt them. As she spoke, she snatched one of the cubs. It was weird, but they seemed to understand humans. The cub immediately submitted to Jiang Nannan as it compared her to the bad guy Shu Sancha. It didn't continue to bite her, and only stared at Shu Sancha with an unfriendly look in its eyes. Xiao Xiao also took this opportunity to snatch the other cub. Bei Bei was in a bit of a daze, and whispered to Hua Yuhao, "What's going on? Didn't you go with the others from the academy? Even if there are rewards, shouldn't they belong to the academy?" Hua Yuhao replied, "Elder Xian gave us these 2 cubs. Although they're still small, they might become the Tang sect's secret weapons if we tame them well." Bei Bei glanced at the 2 of them and laughed bitterly. "Little Junior, do you think dark golden terraclaw bears are so easy to tame?" Hua Yuhao replied helplessly, "I don't know either. At least they have yet to exhibit their destructiveness. I'll ask the teachers from the beast dueling area when I return to the academy and see how I can control them." Bei Bei nodded. "You can only do it this way. Settle them down first. I've asked someone to buy dinner from the restaurant outside. Let's take it as a celebration since we have 3 new members. Great. I'll inform them. However, I don't know how deep Ji Juetchen's closed-door cultivation will be." Hua Yuhao's conjecture was right. Ji Juetchen was very deep in his closed-door cultivation, and didn't attend the celebration dinner. The dinner was sumptuous. In order to host Shen Ziwen and Jing Xian better, Hua Yuhao even grilled some fish personally. This wasn't just a celebration dinner. Shrek's 7 monsters hadn't gathered together for quite some time. They enjoyed a full meal, and spontaneously decided to stay at the Tang sect tonight. After the dinner, Shen Ziwen called Hua Yuhao to his room. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.